Welcome to another episode of the Completely Cricket Podcast. Today, we have an exciting lineup of things to talk about. Starting off with the West Indies-England T20 Series. Since our last episode, the second, third and fourth T20s have occurred. We're going to be summarising the second and third one quickly, but focusing more on the fourth T20 and how the performances of the England and West Indies team. Also, with the fifth T20 happening today at 8 p.m. GMT, we're going to be talking about who we think is going to win, and who do you think is going to be some influential players. After that, we're going to be talking about the IPL retention. Recently, the IPL teams, the 8 IPL teams from last year, this is discluding the 2 new teams, retained their chosen players. So each team's retained like roughly around 3 or 4 players. All teams have lost some players, but remember they can get it back in the auction. That'll be happening soon. So yeah, it's not as if it's just lost all their players, but they've kept a lot of the teams have kept their core players. Some have lost some of their best players, as we will be talking about. We will be looking at the biggest losers to the least losers, and talking about who they lost and how will it impact their chances in the upcoming IPL. And finally, we'll be talking about the 100 with the fixtures being announced recently. We're going to be talking about the sustainability of the 100 and how can they improve it? How can they make it so you get more people to watch, as well as the impact of the 100 on the women's game? Because I think that's something that people should really realize and take seriously. Because as someone who's went to watch the 100 match, the impact on the women's game it's going to have is actually momentous. It's huge. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started. So, Zaid, would you like to give us a summary of the second and third T20 relatively quickly? Because I think most people are going to be focusing on the most recent T20.
Yeah, so in the second T20, England batted first, and then they scored a good 171 for 8. And then West Indies, they put up a fight at the end of that their innings when they scored 170 for 8, and England did win by 1 run. And then there was a bit of lack of care really by England, the death overs, and then they were bowling too much in the slot. And we also had a great partnership from Romario Shepherd and Akil Hussain, which they really took the game away from England. And then in the third T20, West Indies, they scored a massive 224 for 5. And England, that was really just too much for them. They lost by 20 runs. They did put up a fight, 204 for 9. And we did have Banton, who scored 70 odd in fairly quick time. And then we also had Rovman Powell, who scored, I think he scored a century, didn't he? And we've all been wondering where he's been and all this time. He's been scoring loads of runs and he's been doing really well. And then again, it was just a bit of lack of care from England. I think England really need to push up the ante. And so second T20, England won by 1 run. And in third T20, West Indies won by 20 runs.
Yeah, that's a lovely summary. I think in terms of the second T20, it's pretty simple. England had a rough idea they're going to win 5 overs with the last 5 overs to go because the run rate was too high for West Indies. However, there was still a mathematical chance of West Indies winning, and they did show that by coming 1 run short. I think England's death over bowling, especially realistically, they have most of their bowling unit here. I think if we were to think of anyone who'd be missing in the series, who'd normally be in the squad, we'd think of Jofra Archer, maybe even Chris Wokes. But even without those 2 players, England had ample amount of talent to finish off the death over strong. And in terms of bowling, a common recurrence is that at least 2 of the bowlers in each T20 is going to get smacked in the last 5 overs. And that's normally either Chris Jordan or Tymal Mills. We'll be talking about Tymal Mills in more detail in a bit. But Chris Jordan, obviously, I think he's coming towards the end of his career. He's around 33, I think. His death bowling, because his pace is not as much anymore, his death bowling as well as Yorker accuracy has just dropped a little bit. So that's impacted England over the last few T20s, I can tell you that. But batting's been as strong as usual. Tom Banton scoring, I think that's really important because Tom Banton's been a player who's had loads of talent and has performed in domestic T20 tournaments, but on the international stage hasn't been as good. But I think this series is sort of giving him that platform, especially with the lack of pressure as well. With a lot of people viewing this series as sort of like a preparation for the T20 World Cup. It's not like a be all or end all series, so it's really helped him. Yeah, I think we'll go on to a 4-2-20 now. The most recent one happened yesterday. I think, in order to sum it up, it was 193 for 6, England batting. They batted first. Then West Indies only managed to score 159 for 5. The person who contributed the most by far was Moeen Ali. Quality with a bat and ball. I think he scored around 63 off 28 in England's first innings. But in terms of bowling, he took 2 wickets and he was pretty economical. I think all the bowlers were economical. In terms of bowlers, Zaid, any stand-up performances?
Yeah, I think Reece Topley has been doing really well recently. He was in the 4-T20. He was fairly economical. And I think Reece Topley, he's had a bit of a difficult career, really, because he's suffered a lot of injuries and that's just really put him out of the team. I think if he he wasn't going through all those injuries, because of his left arm pace, he's really good with his economy most of the time. And then he's a decent wicket taker as well. So I think we also had David Willey a few years back. He was also great. These two bowlers, I think they're great bowlers. I just think Reece Topley, he would have had more chances to perform and help England win more games and tournaments if he just didn't suffer all these injuries.
Yeah, in terms of the T20 World Cup coming up soon in Australia, do you think that's going to give him that sort of a platform, to put himself into contention, hopefully without any injuries?
Yeah, I'm sure if I was an England selector, I'm definitely playing him for at least a few matches and just to see how he could perform in Australia. And as I said, he's been suffering loads of injuries. So hopefully, fingers crossed, he doesn't suffer any more injuries in the next year or so. So he can actually show what he is made of when he goes to play in the T20 World Cup later on.
Another left arm seamer who is having sort of an opposite fortunes is Tymal Mills. He's obviously, we've all seen him in the 100, we've seen him in the T20 Blast. His performances have been impressive. His control with the ball, his use of slow balls, back of the hand slow ball. He's got everything. He's got all the options in terms of bowler, and he's left arm as well, which gives him the angle. I think in terms of international performances in the T20 World Cup last year, it was pretty good. He 100% had an impact on the team, and without him, when he got injured, England sort of suffered. But in this West Indies series, he has been quite expensive. He didn't play all the matches, but I think this T20, I think he went for like 13 runs and over in the fourth one. That's just too much for a seamer, and especially considering West Indies only scored at 8 runs and over, he's letting in way too many runs, and that could really have an impact on performances, especially in a World Cup situation. So, do you think, especially considering he's like something, I think he's around in his early 30s, do you think how badly do you think this series might impact his future career and his confidence, say?
Yeah, so as you said, he hasn't had a great series in. He did do well in the T20 World Cup last year. But yeah, he, as you said, he is coming, he's in early 30s. And normally you would say that you've had one bad series. It's okay. Everyone goes through bad times. You can just learn from it and move on. But the problem here is he hasn't got that much time left in his career. So he really needs to I'm not sure what's like he hasn't had a great series, so he needs to be careful with his career here. If it he's a great bowler, as you said. Great, he's got everything you want as a fast bowler. And since he's coming to back end of his career, you want him to continue on and just push on for this last bit of his career. And I'm sure he will do that. I'm sure everyone has one bad series. The best situation would have been if that happened a few years back for him. But obviously he hasn't been playing that much. Like 5-6 years ago, we never heard of him. Other than And now, obviously, we know he's a great bowler. So it could impact it. So I think it could impact his career. However, I'm sure he will. Whenever the next series comes, I'm sure he'll learn from it, and I'm sure he'll be back.
Yeah, I think I like the approach of like, just one T20 series. Obviously he's 31. He's not going to be viewing it as towards the end of his career. He's thinking, I'm playing for England. I'm in the peak of my career, which is also true. But I think it's not really I don't think it's a confidence issue as such. I think it's more of a technical thing, which is he's bowling too much into the slot for a team like West Indies who've got loads of batsmen with long levers who've got so much power in them. The worst thing you want to be doing is, even if you bowl full pace or slow balls, bowling into the slot. If you bowl back of the length, it's going to be a bit more difficult to cement. If you're going to bowl it, if you can get in that Yorker zone, obviously that's going to be difficult. But if you get it in the middle, somewhere general like the slot, you're literally going to get absolutely smacked. And I think he's realised that, he's had that experience of being smacked now. Hopefully he can turn that around. A good performance in the 50-20 will really help his confidence and, will boost him when, in lead up to the T20 World Cup in Australia, which England will 100% be the favourites for again, like last one. But England they'll be more expecting to win this one now. Hopefully, with the addition of Josh Archer, might be able to help as well. So with the series 2-2 now, the 50-20 that's happening today is the decider, and it's going to be an action-packed T20. I think we all know that. But who do we think is going to win? Like, who do you think is going to win, Zaid?
Yeah, I'm not really sure because coming into this series, I was thinking England are going to have a great series. I thought they were going to be like the score's going to be 4-1 or something to England. However, we've seen this West Indies team, and we've all known the past few years, even last in the T20 World Cup, they didn't do too well. And their team, since the 2016 T20 World Cup, their team's completely changed. And I think just now, West Indies, I'm sure it's a very promising team now. We've got some great batsmen and some very impressive bowlers. So I'm not really sure. If I was to make a decision, I'm actually going to go with the West Indies to win this final game because I just think their batting is going really well. And England, they've just they need to up the ante really because even in the first T20, they just were stunned by the West Indies. They got a really low score. And yeah, they've shown some lack of care really in the death overs we've seen in the second T20. And they just, England need to stop getting complacent. And I'm sure they will, obviously not going to do that in the 50-20 since they've seen the West Indies show their firepower. So, if I was to choose a team, I'm going to go with the West Indies.
For me, I think it's going to be. I think both teams have a lot of powerful batsmen. I think it's going to be the battle of the bowlers. Whichever team bowls the best is going to win it. So, in terms of West Indies, I'd look at people like Jason Holder, with his back of the length, who caused so much trouble for England in the first couple of T20s. And then in the England team, we want Tyrone Mills to be consistent bowling those Yorkers back of the length rather than in the slot, and the rest of the bowling attack to match him. We've got to have a unity in the bowling attack. So I think for me, especially, it's tough, but I think overall, generally, England in the end will always pull it through. So I'm going to go with England. I have that. There's obviously a bit of patriotism, but also I just I know that England very consistent. They, except for the first T20, all the other T20s they've scored 170 plus. So they're really their batting isn't really a worry. Someone's going to fire, but I think it's in terms of bowling, if they can be very economical and put pressure back on the West Indies, I think the West Indies, obviously with all their might, will still crumble. So for me, I think England going to win it. England win the series 3-2. But yeah, I think it's very good. I think it go either way. So it's going to be an exciting watch today. For any England fans, hopefully England win. West Indies fans, they've got at least a 50% chance of winning. So I think we'll go on to the second topic, which is IPL retention. So basically, all the teams have chosen their key players they want to keep and let out put some people into the auction. So generally, the people in the auction, a lot of them will get bought back by their former teams, but they just want to be bought back at a higher price to get a larger contract. Quickly, Zaid, would you like to quickly go through all the teams and their their key retainers, and then we'll talk about how each team's fared.
Yeah, okay. So I'll just run through it quickly. So Chennai Super Kings, they've retained Ravindra Jadeja, MS Dhoni, Moeen Ali, Richard Gaikwad, and their balance purse has been 48 crore rupees. And then the Kolkata Knight Riders, they've retained Andre Russell, Varun Chakravarti, Venkatesh Iyer, and Sunil Narayan, and their balance purse is also 48 crore rupees. Then the Sunrisers Hyderabad, they've retained Kane Williamson, Abdul Samad, Umran Malik, and their balance purse has been 68 crore rupees. Then the Mumbai Indians, they've retained Rohit Sharma, Jasprit Bumrah, Surya Kumar Yadav, and Kieran Pollard, and their balance purse is also 48 crore rupees. Then the RCB, Royal Challengers Bangalore, they have retained Virat Kohli, Glenn Maxwell, and Mohammad Siraj, and their balance purse is 57 crore rupees. Then Delhi Capitals, they have retained Rishabh Pant, Aksar Patel, Prithvi Shaw, and Anrich Nortje, and their balance purse is 47.5 crore rupees. Then Rajasthan Royals, they've retained Sanju Samson, Josh Butler, Yashasvi Jaiswal, and their balance purse has been 62 crore rupees. And finally, Punjab Kings, they've only retained Mayank Agarwal and Arshdeep Singh, and their balance purse has been 72 crore rupees.
Oh, wow. So there's a lot of key players missing, but there's also key players that have been retained. So I think the way we'll do it, we'll go from the worst losers, so the team that fared the worst in this retention, and to the least. We'll do it one. So I'll do one, you do one, Zaid. I'll start with the worst. So that's Sunrisers Hyderabad, I think. I guess the key reason why I put Sunrisers Hyderabad is because they lost Rashid Khan, who is pretty much the world's best T20 bowler. He takes like regularly 20 wickets in the IPL. He's also so miserly. He lets in like 6.5 runs and over. I don't know how you would manage to lose him. If I were the Sunrisers Hyderabad board, I would literally give him as much money as he wanted and just kept him, because he's their key player. Without him, they finished like quite low in most recent seasons. But without him, they would 100% have done a lot worse. So yeah, that's 100% why I would put them as the least. Also, they don't really have a consistent batsman. Kane Williamson, I have no clue why they've kept them. He barely scored any runs last season. He did not contribute at all to the team. You've got Abdul Samad, who can smack the ball a long way. Umran Malik I think, it's a pace bowler, which is fine. But where's your, if you want to keep, roughly you should keep four players, I think, in the retentions. 2 batsmen, 1 pacer, 1 spinner is like the ideal amount. So it gives you that core of the team. Here, Sunrisers are kept 2 batsmen, one who comes in as a middle order, smashes it, 1 who doesn't score runs, and then you've got 1 pace bowler, no spinner. I think Sunrisers have really had some issues with their management, because this core isn't going to give them any platform to actually mount a challenge to get into the top 4 and to qualify for the semis. So it's a bit worrying, but that's pretty much it for Sunrisers. Who would you say is next, Zaid?
Yeah, I think it's Delhi Capitals next. So they've lost Rabada and Avish Khan, and they're really some 2 good quick bowlers. And I think if you're keeping Anrich Nortje, why not just get keep Rabada, or either one of Rabada or Avish Khan as well, since you've just kept a very great pace bowler, Anrich Nortje. We've seen previous IPL seasons, Rabada and Nortje, the great pair. I'm really stunned that they haven't kept Rabada at least, because if you're not keeping Rabada, why have you just kept Nortje? He needs, if you have 1 pace bowler, if you have that other option, I think it's great to have 2 pace bowlers with great pace and great line length. They're just wicket taking options. And yeah, Anrich Nortje, I'm not sure how he's going to do alone without Rabada this season. Obviously, Delhi Capitals could bring Rabada back in the auction. But if I was Delhi Capitals, I would just go with Rabada and Norkia as my as a great pair to bowl.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think that's completely great. There's also the question of batsman-wise. Rishabh Pant, I don't think he's going to be scoring, 400 runs in the IPL season. He'll score quickly, but he's not going to score that much. Also, you've got Axar Patel as a very skillful spinner. That's good base that's covered. Prithvi Shaw as well. That he's a good talent, but the long term, I think he's a good choice. But short term, if they want to continue their uprising and sustaining that attack on the top four, I think they should have picked. They should have picked some type of batsman who can score consistently, or at least they can get someone like KL Rahul in the auction, which will really help them. So I think next is Rajasthan Royals. They didn't have a very good pick either. So they've kept Sanju Samson, Josh Butler, Yashavi Jaiswal, but when you look at those three players, firstly, obviously you've got Josh Butler, international talent, can score runs. But where's your bowler? Like where's the pace bowler? Where's the spinner? Obviously, if you pick three and you want to pick one more, you can choose either a pace bowler or a spinner. But they've got no one there. I feel like they're basing their hopes too much on, in the auction, picking a pacer or a spinner. Obviously, there are some good pacers like Arvesh Khan who've come off, and there's some others that we'll talk about who have actually put themselves into the auction. So there is options. That's why they're not last. But, if you've got a core team, you would want to keep your best players. And the fact that they've not kept a single pace bowler sort of tells you a bit about how the lacking quality in their team was last season. The lack of good pace bowlers there, and the fact they don't have any spinner. I thought they'd pick Tewatia, Rahul Tewatia. I think he was really good. I'm surprised they didn't pick him. He was a spinner and he also smacked it a bit as well. Anything to add, Zaid, on Rajasthan Royals?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. They just, as you said, they rely too much on just the going into the auction and getting whatever they need. And I think you covered really everything. Sanju Samson, Josh Butler, great players, we all know. And then Jaiswal, I'm not sure how good of a player he really is. I mean, I'm a bit confused. Yeah, if I was the management team of Rajasthan Royals, I would question keeping Jaiswal really. As you said, maybe Tewatia would be a good option to keep. And also, you've got such a big balanced purse there, Rajasthan Royals. They've got 62 crore apiece. So I think they should spend just a little bit more just retaining another player, because Rajasthan Royals, they need to, I'm sure they'll be aiming, they want to get into that top four this season. Last season they didn't do it. I don't think they did. I'm not sure they did the season before as well. But I think they just need to, they can't just rely too much on the auction.
Yeah. Do you want to do Punjab Kings?
Yeah, so Punjab Kings is next. So they've lost KL Rahul, he's a great player. Even for India, we've seen him playing international cricket. Great player. And again, as we mentioned in the previous for Rajasthan Royals, they're relying way too much on the auction. Punjab Kings, they've only retained two players, Mayank Agarwal and Arshdeep Singh. And you're retaining Arshdeep Singh, a young player. Yes, he's a great talent, but a young player, you've got to go with someone else, really. Like they've got an even higher balanced person at Rajasthan Royals. They've got 72 crore rupees, and that's absolutely loads. And you don't know what's going to happen in the auction. You don't know what the other teams are going to go with. So, and we don't know how the other teams are going to auction, what they want. So you've got to make the most of the team you've had before and retain as many players as you need. And I think they should have retained at least KL Rahul or someone else. And the fact that KL Rahul's gone, I think that's going to prove Punjab Kings costly.
Yeah, you pretty much summed it up completely. I agree. They've got a big purse. Could be a lot of financial power in the auction. They might be able to outbid players, but still, there's no guarantee. So I think it's pretty worrying. Anyway, I think now on to a slight bit better better retention picks. So in at number 4 we have CSK. They've had a decent pick. They've kept Jadeja, obviously. His explosiveness and his spin is very important. Moeen Ali, we've seen in the T20 series, West Indies versus England, how important Moeen Ali is to the England team. He's going to be even more important for CSK. Ruturaj Gaikwad as well, a very good batsman. I completely agree. So they've got the whole balance. They've got two batsmen, if you count, and Moeen Ali and Gaikwad. You've got Jadeja as also a middle order, lower order batsman, as well as a spinner. They've also kept MS Dhoni. I think the real question here is obviously pace bowler. Where's the pace bowler? Who are they going to keep? They dropped Shardul Thakur and Deepak Chahar. I think they should have kept at least one of them. To me, I like Deepak Chahar. I think could have kept him. I think also there is the issue of why they kept MS Dhoni. Is MS Dhoni, obviously he's a very good captain, he's very calm, but is he really gonna contribute with the bat? If you picked Gaikwad as your main batsman, and let's just say they struggle in the auction to get another high profile batsman with a relatively small purse of 48 crore, how do you know they're gonna get another solid batsman? And MS Dhoni's not gonna be scoring 200 runs, 300 runs a season. So I think that's a worry in itself. But apart from that, I think they've had a relatively good retention. They've kept key players, kept key batsmen. So I think they'll look into the auction and look to fill up the bowling order. They'll probably look for more young talents who are less well known, so they can get them for a better price. But then I think they should be able to fill up their team. Anything to add, Zaid?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think to talk on MS Dhoni, the only reason they really kept him is for his captaincy. Yes, he's a great captain, but it just gives the question: his batting hasn't been really up to the mark, and that's not his fault. He's come to the end of his career really, and I'm actually interested to see how long he actually stays in the IPL because he's like 42 now. I think I'm not sure, and so I'm sure he will do well with his captaincy. It would be great if he could just score some few runs, maybe in the back end of an innings, just to help CSK win a game. So I think you summed it up great there. And then next we have RCB, Royal Challengers Bangalore. They have kept Virat Kohli, Glenn Maxwell, and Mohammad Siraj. I think that's a good. That's good retention. I think Glenn Maxwell, we've seen him in the BBL do amazing. I think he scored 154 or something in one of the games.
Yeah,
and he is a great player. And they have lost Harshal Patel, which is a bit of a worry because he was absolutely destroying all the batsmen last season, and I think he won the purple cap for the most wickets. I think, and great bowler. I think RCB should have gone ahead and retained Harshal Patel as well because he's just a class bowler. He's a great bowler, and again, you talked about this before. Just having 4 players retained is just probably the best option, and then you can get as many players as you want in the auction. So I just think Harshal Patel should have been retained.
Yeah, I agree with you pretty much. But I think we'll go to the next one, number 2, which is Kolkata Knight Riders, KKR. They had a decent. I think they got Sunil Narayan for 6 crore. So that's pretty good. That's a good buy. Obviously, he isn't at the peak of his career, but he's still very skillful, and he can provide some addition to the batting. Venkatesh Iyer, he's the main batsman there. Andre Russell, he was decent. I think he was injured for a lot of the last season, so he didn't bowl full pace a lot of time. But he has a good control over his wide Yorker, something I was surprised of last season. But and Varun Chakravarti is spinner. KKR have had a good retention. The only real question is maybe another batsman. You've got 2 spinners, the middle order batsman and a top order / middle order batsman as well. So you might need one out and out batsman might be there. But I think they've got 48 crore, so that should be a decent budget to go through to the auction and get themselves the rest of their players. So for them, it's actually a pretty good season. Would you like to do I think everyone knows what the last team is, but Zaid, would you like to do it, the last team?
Yes, the last team is Mumbai Indians. they have really just kept the bulk of their team, the main core of their team. They've got Rohit Sharma, Jasprit Bumrah, Suryakumar Yadav, and Karen Pollard, which are, we all know, four world-class players. They've really just, I think Mumbai Indians have done the best to retain their players. The only thing I would question a little bit is that they haven't retained Trent Bolt, which is a bit of a worry because left arm seam, great bowler. We've seen him do absolutely amazing in the opening overs. So I just think that's a little bit of a worry that they haven't kept Trent Bolt. But other than that, I think Mumbai Indians have retained well and kept the correct players.
Yeah. Okay. That's pretty much it for our IPL section. So the last section, small one, we're just going to talk about the 100. Because then the 100, the organisers of the 100 announced their fixture list for the 2022 season. I think people are excited, cricket fans and not as much cricket fans will still be excited for the whole jovial party atmosphere of the 100. Personally, I went to watch the semi-finals and I enjoyed it. It was a really lovely atmosphere and it was really fun to watch. In terms of what do you think? Do you think that they could tweak, or do you think they should keep it the same, the 100, in terms of how it's run and anything to do with it in order to make it even more successful?
So I think the 100 it was last season was great success. The only thing I'm not sure is because I just think they've introduced it at the wrong time really because the county players they just aren't getting a break. They're playing their county championship 4-day games, then they have the Royal London One Day Cup to play. They also have the 100 to play. Then they have the Vitality Blast to play. They're just playing too much. They need to have a break, and they're just the quality of county cricket that just isn't that good. But I still think the 100 is a great tournament, and it was a great success last year. But none of the fans, none of the people that watch really know what the county players are really facing. They're just playing one game after the other every day, every week, just playing a game. And that's the only thing I really would question. Obviously, they can't really stop the 100 now. That wouldn't really work with the media, the public. You've only had one season, you can't really stop it now. So I just think perhaps just change the county format a little bit, just give the players a little bit of a rest. But they just you need to do something that can give the players a break, but also keep the standard of cricket high.
Yeah, I think that's another question in football as well. You know, the amount of the players' welfare, the amount of matches they're playing is too much. And the county championship players, a lot of the average players in the team are not getting paid that much. They're getting paid like the average salary, like 30, 40, 50,000, which isn't a lot for the amount of effort and the amount of commitment they have to the sport. So in terms of career option, it's not really viable anymore. And the 100, it's a question of whether you're going to fit the 100 around the county championship schedule or the county championship around the 100 schedule. I think it really should be the 100 schedule should fit around the county championship because England's county players and England's test teams just not very good at all. Batsmen are horrible. They've just not had enough experience. Batsmen like Zach Crawley, Joe Root have previously said that, you know, the county championship pitches is a factor for why they aren't really suited. Some of these batsmen are coming up through the ranks, not really playing well at the international level. For me, I think I like the way the tournament's going. I think something that they could work on is adding more star players that people know. A lot of these players are coming, obviously, just playing like T20 Blast, things like that. But you want to get more international names in there. People like, I don't know, for example, Shaheen Shah Afridi or Rashid Khan or something. Just get those big names in because I think that really, in terms of profits and media, I think that would give it a lot more attention and it would just make it a lot more high quality players in a lucrative, tournament. So it would bring it somewhere near it will bring it closer to the level of IPL. But obviously IPL has been going on for 12, 13 years. It has that reputation. But I think if we get more star players in the 100, I think it really just elevates it to the next level. Do you think there's anything else that you could add? And it may be something about sustainability. You know, how long do you think it could? The 100 is a long-term tournament or maybe a short-term?
Yeah, I think the 100 is going to go on for quite a while because I think it's a long-term tournament because it's been going on for quite. It was a great success last year, and I'm sure, as you said, that it just maybe bringing in a couple of just some more star players that everyone has heard of. And he also said about how the county players, they're not getting that much for how much effort they're putting. And I completely agree with that. But I think the 100 is going to be a long-term tournament. I'm sure in the coming years, the ECB will do something to help the county players. And that, as you said, we've seen loads of the current test players. They just, in the England squad, they play in their county championship. The level of county championship isn't good enough at the moment. And they get 150 great scores. Then they go play in the Ashes. Oh dear, they're not doing that well anymore. And then you start, you're not sure why that's happening. Well, it's only because of the county isn't as strong as you would want it. So I think the 100 will stay for quite a while. And it's a long-term tournament, I think. And I'm sure the ECB in the coming years will do something to help the players get the most out of their career.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, I think that's it from us today. Thank you everyone for listening, and yeah, please subscribe, click the notification bell, and share with anyone you know who likes cricket.